Aloha, inspired moneymaker. Thanks for tuning in. If this is your first time with us, welcome. If you are returning, welcome to Inspired Money. I'm your host, Andy Wong, aka Advisor Andy on LinkedIn. Today, we're tackling a topic that's both simple and profound: investing in yourself, personal development for financial and personal growth. For me, as an occasional musician, I get the importance of practice, patience, and a growth mindset. But I'll confess, when was the last time I actually paid for a guitar lesson or hired a vocal coach? It's been way too long. And when it comes to being a financial advisor, I'm not always eager to take that course, attend a conference, or hire that coach. Does that sound familiar to you? Here's the reality. You are not just an investor in your portfolio. You are the most valuable asset in your portfolio. Your skills, your network, your reputation, these are assets you can invest in for growth. And unlike the stock market, where we are at the mercy of Fed decisions and global events, your personal capital can deliver asymmetric returns. A $100 course could boost your income, or one connection could open doors worth millions. In today's episode, we're exploring why personal development isn't just feel-good advice, it's a legitimate financial strategy. We'll dive into building your personal growth engine, creating a career moat that makes you irreplaceable, and perhaps we'll even calculate the actual ROI of investing in yourself. So stay tuned. We've got 4 incredible guests today who are going to share actionable insights about strategic self-investment. Before we do that, let me just take a quick moment to thank our sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by my investment management firm, Runnymede Capital Management, because everyone deserves a clear path to financial independence. Let me ask you, do you really know when you can retire or how much income you'll have when you do? Most people don't, and guessing is risky. That's why we offer a free 3-minute tool that can give you real answers. Go to runnymede.com/getplan, and you'll see your projected retirement age and income, plus strategies to cut debt, lower taxes, grow investments, and protect your future. No sales pitch, no obligation, just clarity. These are the same foundational strategies that I use with my wealth management clients every day. And now they're free to you. So take 3 minutes right now, go to inspiredmoney.fm/getplan. That's inspiredmoney.fm/getplan. And knowing your number isn't just smart, it's essential. Try it and let me know how you make out. Now let's bring in our guests. Our first guest is Whitney Johnson, CEO of Disruption Advisors, and one of the world's top 10 management thinkers named by Thinkers 50. She's a Wall Street Journal bestselling author of Smart Growth, Build an A-Team, and Disrupt Yourself. And she's worked with companies like Amazon and Kraft Heinz to help leaders and teams grow in transformative ways. Whitney, welcome.
Thank you, Andy. I'm delighted to be here.
Excited to have you. Next up, we have J. Kelly Hoey, a networking expert and the author of Build Your Dream Network. Kelly helps professionals and entrepreneurs harness the power of both in-person and digital connections to create meaningful opportunities and lasting success. Kelly, I think we hear car horns in your background.
Well, as long as it's not like ambulances and I don't know what, fire trucks screaming will be good. But you'll know I'm in Manhattan, Andy.
You're definitely in the Big Apple. Joining us as well is Claire Wasserman, founder of Ladies Get Paid, a movement that's helped thousands of women advocate for themselves, negotiate raises, and launch businesses, recognized by Entrepreneur Magazine as one of the 100 most powerful women. She's a leading voice for financial and professional empowerment. Claire, welcome back.
Yay, thank you so much.
And rounding out our panel today, we're excited to have back Jason Vitug, bestselling author of You Only Live Once and Happy Money, Happy Life. As founder of Frugal, he blends personal finance, mindfulness, and self-development to inspire people to live with purpose, confidence, and holistic well-being. Jason, so glad to have you.
Thank you for having me back. Excited to be here. Hello, everyone.
We're going to have a great time today. So Whether you are a longtime investor in yourself or wondering where to start, you are in the right place. Let's get started with segment 1.
You are not just the investor, you are the asset. Your skills, health, network, and reputation make up your personal capital. Unlike stocks, you control this asset entirely. You choose what to learn, how to grow, and where to invest your time and energy. The upside is asymmetric. A $100 course could lead to a $10,000 raise. Your skills either appreciate or depreciate. If you're not actively learning, you're falling behind. Relying on a single ability or job is a concentrated risk. Diversifying your skills, technical, interpersonal, strategic, builds resilience. It's your personal version of risk management. Unlike financial markets, your value doesn't tank with a headline. Strong personal capital is inflation-proof. Your income potential can grow with rising costs. Set a self-investment budget. Track your skill performance annually. Plan not just to maintain, but to upgrade. This isn't personal development as a hobby. It's personal development as a financial strategy. You're the only asset guaranteed to pay lifelong dividends.
Whitney, in your book, Disrupt Yourself, you emphasize embracing change as a key part of growth. How can professionals recognize when it's time to disrupt themselves and invest in developing new skills?
Oh, well, one of the best ways to know it's time to disrupt yourself is you can actually feel it. One of the things that I have built over the years is a framework called the S curve of growth or of learning. And there's 3 parts to it. There is the launch point where growth feels very slow, even though it's actually very fast, but you feel overwhelmed, discouraged, thrilled, etc. But then there's a sweet spot, that steep, sleek back of the curve where it feels like everything is working and you're growing and you feel this great sense of exhilaration. But then you get to the top part of that curve, where is a very interesting place of you figured out what you meant to do. Like you wanted to learn 5 songs on the ukulele, or you wanted to save $5 million. And you're sort of like, well, do I just stay here or do I do something new? And so what I found is that people will have metrics for themselves that might be quantitative, but you typically know because there's something inside of you that says, I need to keep learning. I need to keep growing. If I stay here, I'll stop. Stop growing. I'll start dying. And so you can feel, in fact, that there's more for you to do on the planet. And so you make the decision that you're going to disrupt yourself, meaning you're going to jump to the bottom of a brand new S curve. You're going to engage in a process of deliberate self-innovation, which means you're going to go back to the bottom of an S curve where you're going to feel excited, thrilled, and also terrified again. But it's what allows you to continue on this process of growth, because growth is, in fact, our default setting.
I love that visual of jumping from one S curve to the next. Kelly, what do you think is the biggest risk people face when they don't invest in their network or themselves?
Oh, well, I'm going to use Whitney's example because of a conversation I had yesterday with a friend talking about a mutual connection. And this was someone, Whitney, who had realized that they were on the top of the S curve in their career. Okay. They realized that they couldn't get any further. So rather than embarking on their own personal journey, they stayed put for 2 years. And I'm sort of picturing this S curve like a roller coaster. It's like that thing's going down whether you like it or not. So you can either jump on it yourself. So I think the greatest risk, Andy, is people wait. And, you know, Whitney and I'm sure Claire and Jason have some ideas. Why do people hesitate? You know, why that fear when change is constant, why we fear. And so kind of keeping your head low, doing, you know, what you've been doing, even though you know it's at an end. I mean, people just do that. And then, you know, you're forced into a much harder S curve of growth because now you know, what do I do? What are my transferable skills? What's the network I need to do this? When you're forced into it, that's when it's really hard. So I think some of the people listening to this might be having that situation where they're in a job they're not happy with, or they know there's a cliff coming. Like, how do you prepare yourself for that? How can your investment being proactive and projecting into the future in terms of what are the resources and things that you need to make a change so that, you know, kind of not getting shoved down that S curve, you're making the choice yourself.
Claire, you work with a lot of women. You help a lot of women. Do you advise taking an inventory to really identify what is your most valuable asset, and then what areas you need to improve?
Before I start, can I just give a shout out to Jay Kelly? Because I don't know if she remembers me, but many years ago and many failed startups ago on my end, I pitched, I think at South by Southwest. Jay Kelly saw me and she invited me to an office hour she was hosting at General Assembly. This was probably 10 plus years ago, 15 years ago. And so this is actually a great example of how do you do inventory of yourself and consistently self-invest sort of before you need it. I love this model that Jay Kelly did of, I want to help all of these folks, but I don't have a lot of time and energy. So how about once a month or whatever it was, she would host these sort of open forum, you stand in a line and meet her. And I met her again, 10, 15, many failed startups ago. So I'm having a personal moment of, I'm just so pleased that I get to be on this panel with you now.
Oh my God, that's amazing. And I'm just thinking, was I like royalty in the past life that I made people line up? Like, what the hell was that?
No, but it was a great model. It really showed us, it was so great because again, it showed us you can help others, but it should not be at the expense of your own energy. It was the most optimized way you could help a whole group of people, right? Instead of doing one-on-one coffee meetups, you said, everybody show up, but I want to give you individualized attention. So I think a lot of us can model, not just, giving advice, but literally show up as what we recommend others do. And something I have learned in my life that I teach, my client that I coach and the Ladies Get Paid Network is you must check in with yourself every day. And a great question to ask yourself is, where did my energy go? Energy in and energy out. And really start to find the variables that contribute to energy in and out. There are patterns there. And the only way you're going to catch it is if you're being proactively, if you're looking for it, as opposed to waiting until you're either burnt out, let go, right? When you're at the sort of rock bottom, you now have to crawl out and figure it out versus in the moment going, my energy in today was from here. Let me try to dissect that a bit further. How can I kind of double down on the energy in? And then how can I kind of self-protect on the energy out? That is a great place to get started.
Love that. Love being strategic with one's energy, because I'm sure that people can relate. In retrospect, when you look back, you say, oh my gosh, I wasted a lot of energy doing stupid things.
Not if you learn. Nothing stupid if you learned.
True. A tough lesson. Jason, in your book, You Only Live Once, you discuss living with purpose. How does self-investment align with living a purposeful life that balances both financial and personal growth?
Yeah, so one of the key things I like to focus on, we're talking about networks, we're talking about connections, so I want to dive in a little deeper in that. And so when I'm thinking about investing in, and I do apologize for
let the dogs out, Jason.
for the dogs. So they hear me talking, and all of a sudden they want to chime in. But the importance of network. So when we think beyond stocks and bonds, like how do we invest in our network, and how do we invest in building? Because those are investments that pay back. And to Claire's point, waiting in line, that's an investment of time in order to build out the network. And we see it. We see it when it comes to finding or seeking new employment opportunities, finding new professional circles, or even kind of like the next stage. Like I have worked in this profession, and now I am in that new S curve. So the professional connection, the network, allows me the opportunity to explore different avenues, different paths. And I think it's really important when we're thinking about building our assets. There's that saying that our network is our net worth, and it's important to kind of stress that. And there is investment in time, investment in mental focus, emotional investment as well into these networks, into these people, because it is extremely valuable.
Someone want to say something?
Yeah, I do. Going back to something that Kelly said about the fear piece. One of the things I remember several years ago, and I actually wrote about this in Disrupt Yourself, is there was a fellow who had like 10 years worth of savings in the bank. Like he had a lot of savings and he would not change jobs. And so the question was, why aren't you changing jobs? And oftentimes it goes to this sense of identity, like the S curve that you're on, what you're currently doing, your identity is deeply tied to that. So oftentimes when we're not willing to do something new, it's because we're afraid. But the thing that I would have everybody consider, for anybody on this call who's ever lost a job, which includes myself, what I have discovered that is when you lose that job, even if you're being laid off, it's because you knew deep in your heart and your soul that this was no longer the place for you. It was no longer the S curve. It was time to disrupt yourself. You wouldn't do it. And so the universe just gave you this nudge to get you to go do that new thing. And so when you're willing to disrupt yourself before you get disrupted, back to everything everyone else has said so far, you're in a much better position, a much better headspace to navigate it, because you feel the sense of autonomy as opposed to the sense of like, ooh, this thing just happened to me, and now you've got to recover from it emotionally and psychologically. But if you disrupt yourself, then you position yourself like, I'm in charge. I can figure this out.
So take charge.
Let's
move on to segment 2. Personal growth isn't random, it's engineered. Your growth engine runs on consistent input, deliberate practice, and feedback. 1 hour per weekday, the 5-hour rule, is the minimum fuel. To turn learning into skill, use structured tools like the Feynman technique or Kolb's cycle. Stop absorbing passively. Process, apply, refine. Skill stacking creates leverage. Being top 25% in multiple areas can beat being elite in one. Direction comes from clear goals. Use OKRs, one objective with 3 to 5 measurable key results. Track, adjust, repeat. Momentum builds as each success reinforces the next. Whether you're upskilling to go further or reskilling to pivot, the engine adapts. Growth isn't something that happens, it's something you drive. When you treat learning like a system, you get consistent output, new capabilities that compound over time. Build the engine, keep it running, let it scale your potential.
Jason, you emphasize systems for living well. How do you personally structure your growth engine so it's sustainable and not just aspirational?
So I thought about this, and I think it's important for people to look at kind of building their skills as if they're building their investment portfolio, right? So we need to make regular deposits. It needs to be consistent. And through that consistency, we're going to see growth. And so I wanted to tie that financial aspect to it. And one of the key things, I'm really big on micro learning. And when I talk about micro learning, that's listening to podcasts, listening to YouTube conversations. In addition to, there's an app that I really enjoy, which is Blinkist, that exposes me to different books that I may not necessarily have the time to read. But then eventually I learn something that will allow me to perhaps do a deeper dive or purchase the book and learn a bit more. And so when we're looking at kind of like building a growth engine for learning, it really are these little micro lessons and incorporating that throughout the day. So when we make an investment into a certification program or into a long online course, I mean, that takes a lot of time commitment. And I think if we're incorporating the importance of learning within our daily life, these micro lessons, again, through podcasts, through shows, we can incorporate that daily.
Whitney, the 5-hour rule and deliberate practice are key parts of your philosophy.
Yeah.
What practical tips do you offer someone struggling to make time for consistent learning?
Yeah. Well, a couple things. I'm building on this portfolio metaphor. I think about S curves, and you have a portfolio of S curves, and you want to properly load balance them. With most of your S curves in the sweet spot, at least one where you're in mastery, where you feel like you know what you're doing. But at any given time, you want to have at least one at the launch point, so that you're in this place of not knowing how to do something. The thing to remember is that sometimes when we're learning, we actually feel really uncomfortable. So we're in a place of learning frequently, but we don't want to be in that place because it feels so uncomfortable. Some of the lessons that we need to learn are not only these micro skills of I need to figure out how to use AI. We need to learn how to use the skill of how do I get along with other people? How do I build a team? How do I emotionally regulate? So I think those are some important elements of it. But to your question, which I think is where you were going, Andy, is I am a big proponent of the 5% better. When you are focused on doing really small incremental gains, you're able to harness the power of dopamine because you beat your expectations, and then that feels really good. So one of the best ways to do things that are hard and new. So I don't know that I would allocate an hour a day. If you're not doing any learning at all right now, which is probably not the case, I would start with 5 minutes, those 5% better, and start to just put that into your routine, and you gradually build this path, this neural pathway where you're learning much more frequently.
I love the idea of diversifying that portfolio and then measuring just, by 5% a day. It's achievable. It's not too big a leap, but you will see cumulative changes over time. Claire, I know you're big on negotiation. How can this skill serve as a foundational building block for creating a growth engine in somebody's career?
Tying into negotiation. Well, before I answer that, I just want to give people kind of 5 areas that you might want to consider focusing on, and pick the one that just feels, I'll go back to energy, feels like it will light you up. It's your strengths, your skills, your network, and your experience. Okay. And these are all different. Even strengths and skills are not the same thing. And try not to tackle everything all at once, but just dig into where, if you were to invest a little bit into, let's say, your network, learning from others, maybe it's not directly connecting, but it's following people on LinkedIn, like that counts. And I think it's important that you find a way to chart your progress. And is it time, the time you're spending a day? Is it discomfort? Is it, so a lot of this is, and I'll tie it to negotiation now, it's actually negotiating with yourself, because you may find that you can really talk yourself out of anything. Even if you say you want it, you feel you want it. Oh, wait, what do you want more? I don't know, to take a nap, right? And so I think first learning how to kind of self-dialogue when it gets hard, that is the place to look at first when you're trying something new. Did I tie it to negotiation okay?
Well done, 100%.
Good job, Claire.
I wasn't sure how to answer that question.
Kelly, what tools or strategies do you use? From everybody's answers so far, I have the feeling like I need to be maintaining a notebook or a spreadsheet or something where I'm setting goals and can track my progress.
I want to go back to something that Clara said originally. Like you need to do an audit, right? Where are you at? Are the skills, the network, your passion? Is it all invested in the thing you're doing now, as opposed to where you want to get to? Like, where are you on Whitney's S curve? And maybe you've got to say, all right, I am over investing in this network. I am over investing in these skills. Here's where I need to take some of that energy and time and put it somewhere else. And that's all individual. So we all have to look and do that. Sherelle Dorsey, who is a friend, she's an entrepreneur, she's a journalist, she's done all sorts of different things. One of the things she talked to me about when she and I had a conversation a while ago is she creates a personal development stack, and hits into what Jason said, which was, okay, maybe because you're traveling or life or whatever, you don't have time to do that big long course, or every time you sign up for an online course, you're gonna slide your credit card and not show up and finish the work. Like, where are the podcasts? Where are the books? Like, where are all those pieces that you could say, you know what, here's information. This is, accessible. I can do this. But she creates a personal development stack of like, okay, what is it I want to learn? What is it going to take to go from where I see myself today? I also sort of this idea of what we're investing in. I want sort of, I don't think it's a completely contrary point. Like some of this stuff that you're finding, there's, getting 5% better, or 5 hours, or, what's Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours, trying things and spending time to figure out what you're not good at, right? Like thinking about what Claire said, what your strengths are and your skills. What are you passionate about? Or, are you doing that thing? But trying things and making those investment of time so you can like kick things off the list
Yeah.
of that you should not be, pursuing. And Terry Trespico's book, Unfollow Your Passion, is a great one about that. Like, somehow in trying all sorts of, and seeing if you can learn different things, you may just find the brilliant thing you really should be brilliant at. And that's a good investment of time.
Do you mind if I'm going to jump in real quick? 2 things. You don't know what you don't know, first of all. So sometimes it can help with just listening or talking to people who you admire in some capacity, who might be one step ahead of you. And then they can tell you all the things that they did that you shouldn't try, or, you'll filter it, but you'll get a preview and learn from them first. That's very helpful. And then for anybody who's feeling like, oh God, another thing on my to-do list, chances are you need to actually stop doing something you're currently doing, or optimize your energy better. Whenever I start coaching clients, and we're looking for a new job, we're adding things to their list, we've got to take away something first. So we always do an inventory of where can I do less, do it better. I love that idea of unfollow your passion. There's probably something to sort of cease or stop now so that you can kind of increase in another area.
Too many things to eliminate for me. Whitney, did you have something to add?
I forgot what it was because I was paying attention to what Claire was saying. So if it comes back to me, I'll let you know.
Yeah, I do want to chime in a little bit here. And part of that has to do with, I'm big on following my curiosities. And so there's this whole focus on kind of doing as many things as possible and things like that. But I think what we want is to remain curious about the world. And that curiosity is going to expose us to new things and new opportunities. And most of the time, to Claire's points, like, we don't know what we don't know. And the only way for us to find the things we don't know is to go out there and experience the world. And oftentimes when we devote all our time and energy on one specific aspect of ourselves, whether it's just our profession, we kind of limit our ability to grow. So we need to, take some of that time in this professional development within that career and invest some of that into following our curiosities. And that might lead us to a different path in the future. So I think that's important to note.
I remembered what it was. Thank you, Jason. You prompted it. What I would say, I think that one of the things I've observed about us as human beings is that the older we get, the more we can actually insulate ourselves from ever doing anything new. Like we really can put out a routine that we never do new things. And so I remember, a couple of years ago, someone asked me, what's one of your hobbies? And I said, well, one of my hobbies is trying new things. I tried rappelling a couple of years ago. I took surfing lessons. I was terrible, but I didn't care because I was just practicing and building the muscle of doing new things and being bad at things. And so I think that, in this part, this discussion that we're having is when we're learning and growing, we are by definition, see the cars outside your window, Kelly, agree with me. We are by definition going to be bad at stuff. And we need to be willing to be in that place of not being good at things. And so I think it's a great hobby just to be in the habit of trying new stuff.
Love it. Try new things. Try to eliminate the road rage. We're going to go to segment 3.
A strong resume isn't enough. You need a career moat. That means building a personal brand and network that makes you difficult to replace. Start by defining what you're known for. Specialization builds identity. Next, prove your value publicly. Create content, teach, or share what you're learning. Thought leadership earns trust. Then build strategic alliances. Prioritize weak ties. They're often your best source of opportunities. Keep your network warm with consistent no-ask check-ins. Help first. Offer insight, connections, or support before you need anything. Over time, your moat grows deeper. Opportunities come to you. You gain pricing power. You become resilient to market shifts. This isn't about visibility for its own sake. It's about defensibility. Your skills, reputation, and relationships are assets. Treat them like a fortress, designed, maintained, and reinforced. That's how you build long-term leverage in a volatile job market.
Kelly, you've said networks can be a person's most durable career moat. How does one intentionally deepen that moat?
Well, I love that you have this in here because I think your network, using the Moat kind of visual, I think a network in uncertain times, in the amount of disruption and chaos and transformation we're seeing, your network is that, I want to say it's that drawbridge over the moat. I had a gentleman who came up to me at a book event, and he had been laid off. And, for those of us who've been in the financial sector, when you get laid off in one of those kind of jobs, they're basically like, someone will watch you and you will take everything from your office and, could you speed it up and get up, we'll give you a few hours, as opposed to 15 minutes. And he walked into his office and he took his contact list. So for those of us who are old enough to remember Rolodexes, he took his Rolodex, he tucked it under his arm, and he said, I've got everything. And the guy who just laid him off was like, what are you talking about? He says, oh, if I have my relationships, I'm good. And that's what he had. And so this whole idea of how you build that moat, right? How are you showing up every day? How are you treating your coworkers? Do you have that curiosity as Jason talked about? Do you have that curiosity in them? Okay. Are you doing sort of an assessment of, who you can learn from and what you need? But that network, right? That is going to that is your moat. That's going to get you over the moat into the next thing. And as your video also talked about, as I like to say, it's not who you know or what you know, it's who knows what you know. So how are you sharing what it is that you know or what you're curious in, so that, you've got a network. And if they find that you were all of a sudden disrupted and you're like, shoot, where do I go now? They're there to help you. They know what you're interested in, but they're also there because you've been on this crazy S-curve ride with them. And that makes a difference. So showing up once doesn't matter. Showing up every day matters.
On this idea of it's important, what are you known for? Claire, what advice do you give to people for defining what to be known for? And how can personal branding help someone build defensibility in their career?
Mm-hmm. Well, first, I think it starts with the process of elimination, of making a delineation between what you think you should be known for and what you want to be known for. Just because you happen to be very good at a thing or known in the past, or you went to an Ivy League, really dig into what lights you up that you want to share, and to share consistently. This is especially important for anybody who's thinking about entrepreneurship. You have to be really into it, into the process of figuring it out and sharing. Also, ask yourself, am I willing to share some vulnerable stuff here? Not just the wins, because the wins may be far and few between, but what about the process? Could that be the thing that I become known for? The way that I think, not just what I do or the outcome. So my first recommendation is always to get, let's go a little bit deeper before you put it out there.
How about you, Jason? You're a storyteller. How can storytelling itself create a moat that makes you difficult to replace?
I think, with AI kind of being incorporated in pretty much every aspect of our lives, and it using kind of our skills and even our stories and formulating its own ideas, it's important for us to really own our story. It's important for us to really own who we are and our ability to share it authentically, right? Not just algorithmically, but authentically. And that has a lot to do with self-reflection, and also reaching out to our network and seeing how they see us in order for us to be able to convey what we want to convey, and not what we necessarily, to Claire's point, what we think we should. So I wanted to kind of talk a bit about branding, because I have fell into this for many years, this idea that I needed to go and create a brand for myself. And through my own process within the last decade, it's realizing and understanding that when we focus all our attention in kind of building or creating this brand, we stop investing in creating and building ourselves as human beings. Mm-hmm. And so there's this effort on being a brand as opposed to an effort on our being as a person. And also this focus on creating a brand extremely for profitability, which takes away our own personal humanity. And so for me, it really is assessing, because if we're investing our time, our energy, and our resource, and we want to be authentic to be out there, it really is understanding who we are as a whole. Because I've certainly felt this, which is this professional identity crisis, where we invested so much time and energy and effort and letting our networks know that we are one particular type of person and we're sacrificing all other aspects of ourselves. And then so when we're laying in bed, staring at like in the ceiling, we're going, have I made all these choices? And so for me, I really want people to look at things holistically. And that kind of goes back to the wellness dimensions that I talk about in my book, Happy Money, Happy Life. And so for me, it's really evaluating where you are, where you want to go, and how that brand plays into you as a being, not just as an entity.
Whitney, what are the pillars of a strong personal brand? What are your thoughts?
Oh, I have so many ideas going through my head. So a few things that I would share. One is, and this goes back, I think, somewhat to the network, is I had the really good fortune of being able to work with Clayton Christensen, who wrote The Innovator's Dilemma. He was a Harvard Business School professor for a number of years and best known for disruptive innovation, and was able to stand on the shoulders of this wonderful, gentle giant of going into this idea of personal disruption. And so I think part of building a brand is that our network in part is going to help make it possible for us to build that brand. But then the other thing that's really coming up for me, and building on what Jason just shared, is for me personally, because I talk about personal disruption, I recognize that if I am not willing over time, consistently, year after year, being willing to disrupt myself, being willing to talk about the mistakes that I've made, which if you read my books, you hear about the mistakes, but that process that I'm going through, that deliberate process of self-innovation, that allows the brand that I'm putting out in the world of the importance of disrupting yourself, the importance of growth, the importance of a growth mindset in a continuous way, is I have to make sure I'm living what I'm talking about. I remember, I don't know, probably 15 years ago, I was having a conversation with one of my mentors, and they said, if you want to go do this work, which is personal development, et cetera, you need to make sure that you yourself are doing this work, because if you don't, you're a fraud, you're a phony. And so make sure whatever brand you're putting out into the world, you are living, you are the embodiment of that brand. And from there, there's all sorts of things you can do. You're going to write podcasts, whatever your strengths are. But the foundational piece is, what do you deeply care about? You want to put your stake in the ground. You're willing to stand for this, through thick and thin, and then you're willing to live that and embody that. I think those are all foundational to the personal brand.
It sounds like this process really does require vulnerability.
I think asking your network. I mean, that's one of those things. Like so many people, I love Jason's comment in terms of people building their personal brand. Are like, I'm going to focus on building a personal brand. I'm like, are you a box of Cheerios? Like, come on, you're a human being. Because our brand is what our network says it is. And so really asking your network, what do you think it's the equivalent of doing like a 360 review, like you get in a company. And I remember a friend of mine who was laid off from a Wall Street job, and she was going through the fancy outplacement that the firm had organized, and she was sitting having coffee with the other 20 people who were going through this outplacement group conversation, and someone said to her, "Oh, you're a marketer," and she's like, "What are you talking about? Like, I'm operations in a finance place. What do you mean I'm a marketer?" And then everybody else in the room was like, "Yeah, you're a marketer." Mm-hmm. And Joyce was amazing. She sort of stepped back and had enough self-awareness and said, I need to listen to this. I need to listen to hear, like, what are they seeing? I also think it hits with, sort of going back to everyone saying, and in particular what Jason was saying, is like, what are you letting your network know that you want to be known for? Is it this, the skill and the strength that you don't want to be continually doing? Are you confusing the market by what you're putting out there as opposed to being very defined? Like, this is what I want to be known for. This is the work I want to be getting. This is the opportunities I want to be coming my way. And that clarity in the content you're putting out can create that. So, I'm laughing, Whitney, when you said, you have to like live your own disruptive life. Maybe it's the daughter of a veterinarian. So I always say about networking, when I'm talking to people, it's like, I eat my own dog food. Like I am not telling you to network in some way that I wouldn't network.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can I chime in here? So one of the key things early on in this journey, I was trying to position myself as this financial expert, and just speaking about budgets and numbers really wasn't something I wanted to do all the time because I had a different focus. My focus was how can we live more? And typically finances is the part of our life that could be preventing us from doing the things that we want to do, affecting our well-being. And so when I started listening to Kelly's point, I started listening to my network. They're like, oh yeah, you're the guy who travels. You're the guy that does yoga and breath work. And then you talk about money. And so I started listening to that and I realized, okay, yeah, that uplifts my spirit and gets me excited to be able to talk about finances in a way that isn't stuck in a spreadsheet, but it's out there in the living world. And so when I do have sessions and I do have talks at corporate environments, I am getting them to do movement. So we're doing money and movement. We're doing yoga breaths. We're doing all sorts of things, incorporating the wellness aspect of it. And so that was, again, listening to my network, which is part of our net worth, and also understanding if I am going to be known for something, I want them to know kind of like my entirety, and that has served me like tenfold.
Love it. Let's go to segment 4.
Personal growth isn't a feel-good project, it's a financial strategy. The ROI of self-investment is calculated like any business asset, cost versus gain. That includes time, money, and what you give up to grow. Gains aren't just promotions or raises. Confidence, clarity, and better health all impact your bottom line. The formula is simple. Net gain minus total cost divided by cost. A course that costs $2,000 but leads to a $10,000 raise has a 400% return. Even soft skills have measurable value. Track faster promotions, fewer sick days, or new clients via networking. And don't ignore the payback period. How long until it pays off? A high return investment that pays back fast deserves priority. Treat yourself like a high-performing asset. Run the numbers, adjust the inputs. The smartest investment strategy isn't in the markets, it's in you.
Whitney, you work with a lot of large organizations. How can executives measure the ROI of investing in leadership development for themselves or for their teams?
I love that question so much, Andy. So we just did recently with an executive that we were working with. He had engagement scores that were at the bottom quartile, and they were like, "We might need to fire you," but they wanted to invest in him. He'd been a solid performer for a number of years, and so we went in, did an intervention, if you will, of coaching for him. Where he was actually coachable and willing to change, and then did some work with his team and offsite, et cetera. And over the course of about 18 months, he went from the bottom quartile to the top quartile. So they didn't need to replace him as an executive. There was a burnout reduction, and there also had a toxic employee leave. And when we started to quantify this, what they had spent on this intervention, if you will, and the return based on those results, there was somewhere between a 9 and a 19 times return. And it was so fun to go through this with him and have him be up, because sometimes it's so squishy, coaching, and you're like, yeah, coaching, not going to do it. No, coaching and this teamwork, you get an ROI of 9 to 19 times. That's pretty significant.
Amazing.
That's amazing that it's quantifiable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to jump in quickly because oftentimes I get requests from employee resource groups, women's groups who want to bring me in, and I charge, right? Ladies get paid, and I have to teach them how to get budget. And so we always work backwards from what do your leaders care about? So not what you care about, but what do they care about? What are the metrics they need to see? And building that in before the workshop or whatever it is that we're doing. So it's not just qualitative, hope it went well, I feel good about it, but how does this translate into something quantifiable? And then they realize, oh, wait, I should be doing this for my job. Also, this is how I get a promotion and a raise. It's not about me, it's about them.
Yeah, so good.
I love that. Kelly, the value of the network also feels intangible. How can people measure an ROI, or should we even be trying to do that?
Sometimes I think it's dangerous to do that because, kind of getting back to, comment Jason made earlier, in terms of your humanity. But I think this idea of you're investing in your network, you're investing in their success, that is going to pay dividends. You know, it's the investment that you may not call, you know, it might be that stock in your portfolio that is sitting there for 20 years, and then you can call them up again and say, hey, and they're going to pick up the phone. So there is an intangibility to it. It's interesting when Whitney said, 18 months and you saw the ROI. When I was making a career change out of practicing law into law firm management, which should sound very easy, and I always say to people I was going from one side of the balance sheet of a law firm to the other. But at that time when I was doing it, it was a closed network. It was a whispered network. I did not have the experience. That 18-month investment on top of, like, I want to say 12 years or more of investment in my colleagues at 3 different law firms, that enabled me both mentally, I want to say sort of, my ego as I was going through this, that pit of despair, in the S curve when you're, please, I know what I want to do. This can't happen fast enough. That network, the ROI repaid itself. And then that continuous investment, when I think about everything that else has happened, Andy, you can't even put a price on it, in terms of human relationships, in terms of our health, our well-being, and, our prospects in life.
Jason, I think you've written about emotional and lifestyle return on investment. How do you help people assign value to outcomes like peace of mind or better health?
So one aspect of well-being and investing in well-being is rest. So I hear a lot of employees, a lot of executives who are saying that they're feeling burnt out for a ton of different reasons, but ultimately, cumulatively, they feel burnt out. And what tends to happen before their employer realizes that they're burnt out, they're looking for a different job, and that has an impact on the workplace, right? So I've worked with employers in incorporating sabbatical programs and creating development action plans specifically tailored to their high achieving performers, because typically it's focused on those who are underperforming, and we should be focusing on those who are high achievers because they have a higher propensity of being burnt out. And so an investment in getting them to rest is really vital. And so as an organization, they can kind of see that in terms of, like to Whitney's point, you can see a return on that investment on the corporate level, because there's also, you're looking at the opportunity cost when someone leaves and then you have to go hire someone, the time to get them trained and to start working on projects and programs. There's that piece. But personally, when we start investing in rest at part of our well-being, and that is part of our, that self-investment, is how can we calculate that, right? So I tend to use this example that when you're extremely busy, you feel burnt out, and I'm suggesting part of your well-being is to invest in rest. How do you do that when you go home and you got chores to do, you got other things you have to do in your life? That is paying, for instance, a delivery service to shop for your food and deliver it right at your front door, or paying for someone to go clean your house, because living in a place that's a bit more clutter-free and clean can help you with your mental and emotional well-being. And there's a return in that in terms of those financial investments in how you feel and think and even perform at work, and also how you show up in your relationships. And so I wanted to stress that piece out.
That's the perfect segue. We're going to wrap it up or go to our final segment.
Hustle culture promotes burnout disguised as ambition. It glorifies long hours, constant optimization, and public displays of progress. But working longer isn't the same as working better, and sacrificing rest for status is a high-cost trade-off. Real growth doesn't rely on guilt, performance, or perfection. It's built from values, not vanity metrics. When you lead with what matters to you, you build a system that supports consistency, not exhaustion. Focus on fewer, better efforts. Prioritize deep work over performative busyness. Treat rest as essential infrastructure, not a luxury, and replace self-criticism with self-compassion. It's not just kinder, it's more effective. Growth doesn't require suffering. In fact, sustainable success is rooted in strategy, not stress. The most powerful path to improvement isn't the one that pushes you to the edge. It's the one that makes progress repeatable, meaningful, and resilient. When well-being is part of the process, you're not just growing, you're building something you can actually keep.
So we're approaching the top of the hour. I know a couple of our panelists are going to have to hop off. Whitney, let me go to you. How can we embrace rest without feeling guilty, especially in high performance environments?
Yeah. This is something, actually, a journey that I'm on right now. I mean, I worked on Wall Street, and I was so proud of the fact that I could work 80 or 90 hours a week. And really, I did carry that as a badge of honor. And one of the things I've observed over the past couple of years is this sense of, I don't know how not to work, and building those new neural pathways of resting. And there's all sorts of great research out there. Tiffany Shlain wrote a wonderful book called 24/6. Sean Acor talked about the value of vacation. And I think that, and I have a Whoop that allows me to track the fact that I feel better when I rest more. And so I think if we can just recognize that when we are willing to rest is in fact a technology, because it makes things work better, and build that spaciousness into our lives. And this is the work that Jason's doing, is creating a life of well-being, a life of wholeness. And it's something that I'm working on, and I'm finding that I'm happier than I've ever been. I'm sleeping better. And so I think the ROI on rest is extremely, extremely high.
It's one of the things that my wife keeps telling me daily. You need to get more sleep. If you want to live a long time and lead a happy life, you better sleep more and rest more.
Mm-hmm.
Jason, I know that you're going to have to hop too. Any tip you want to leave us with on pushing back against this hustle culture?
Yeah, I mean, I really want to be upfront there as well, that I thought working 60, 80 hours a week was a badge of honor. I thought the hustle and grind was very important. And if you weren't working really hard or hustling and grinding, then you didn't want it hard enough. And so what I've learned is that gears that grind for too long get worn out and then thrown out. And so if all we do is hustle and grind, there's going to be a point where we have abused our body, our mental health, and we're just going to be thrown out. And people are going to forget the work that we've done. They're just going to see the person that's exhausted, kind of the model of it. And so it's important for us to invest in ensuring that we're taking care of ourselves, as well as taking care of our professional aspirations. And again, kind of focusing on the rest and the relaxation. There's studies out there that when we're taking vacations, we don't actually start resetting our mental and physical health until the 6th day. So some people will take, a long weekend, and they might do that a few times throughout the year, and thinking that that's a way for them to kind of take a break. That actually doesn't allow your mind and your body and your nervous system to reset. And so I'm a big advocate when you're taking a break. And I think this had to do with working in a financial institution where we were required to take 2 weeks off. And that had a lot to do with their operations, which was they were looking at auditing our work, making sure we weren't embezzling or anything like that. But I think there is something that we can learn when we can take an extended period of time. It allows our body to start resetting, our nervous system to kind of get back into that mode. And then we start seeing things differently. And so an investment in rest is vital.
Claire, what's your thought?
Yeah, I think if you can see investing in rest as actually helping you, and let's say we're prioritizing productivity and output, and you currently see rest as detracting from that, we've got to flip it where you actually see it as the engine that's enabling you to work better. If you can't sort of accept the rest for the rest's sake, right? That's crucial. And I think even little things like not looking at your phone an hour before bed, that counts. So, to Jason's point, don't just look for the weekend recovery, but to integrate it in small ways throughout the day, and to acknowledge I'm sitting here for 10 minutes with my eyes shut. I may not fall asleep, but that is still rest, and it matters. And it's not easy, and it's not comfortable necessarily, depending on who you are. So that's just consistent, small, and to celebrate it as you do it. The S curve of learning. The S curve of resting. How about that?
There it is. This is a snooze. Andy, I was going to say, so, I love, Jason, that you said that, in terms of the 6 days, there was a law firm I worked at, shout out to Osler Hoskin in Toronto. And they used to insist, so I was working for them in the 90s, and they have the 4 weeks paid vacation. They insisted that one of them be 2 weeks. And part of that was the individual rest. But the flip side of it is like, what are we doing to our colleagues? What are we doing to our team environment? What are we doing to the stress and camaraderie and the rest of the people who are around us when we're just taking, long weekends and things like that maybe then, completely disrupting their schedule and not in a good way. So as this partner said to me, we insist on 2 weeks because then we can do a clean handoff. Then we can plan the projects. Then we can decide what you're going to take on when you come back. And there's not this, oh, I'm just away for the weekend, I'm not answering emails, this kind of thing. The other thing I'd say, we've talked a lot about sort of executives, so the people who are sort of working their way up, one of the ways when I was working, the silly hours we have talked about, the 80, 90-hour weeks, is I would watch very closely the patterns of behavior of those who I was working with. And there was one partner I worked with all the time, and he liked to work. He used to work until midnight or 1 a.m, and then he'd hand off what he was working on to, like a night secretary. And when he got in the morning at 10 a.m., never before 10 a.m., when he got in the morning at 10 a.m., all he wanted was that work on his desk. So one day, after watching his pattern of behavior and not hanging out until like 1 or 2 in the morning when he handed over work, I looked at him and I said at, like 6 p.m. or something, 7 p.m., I said, I'm out of here. He's like, what are you doing? We haven't finished the work. I said, I know what you want. You want an output on your desk at 10 a.m. I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna have dinner with my husband, and then I'm going to, get a good night's sleep, and I'll be in here at 7:30, and I'll be checking the work, and you'll have what you want on your desk at 10 a.m. So that's the other thing. I'm thinking, like, people who are not completely in control of their workflow, take control of the patterns of the workflow of those around you.
Love it. The importance of setting boundaries and understanding your environment and working within those confines. Anybody else want to share a final thought?
Yeah. So one of the key things when tying this to income, tying it to money, is that when we hustle and grind, the idea is that there are financial rewards, whether we're doing it for ourselves as an entrepreneur, we're doing it in the workplace for an employer. I think it's really vital for everyone to use some of the income that we're earning into and investing into wellness, right? We're looking at the opportunities to improve our mental health, our emotional well-being, our physical health, because if all we do is work and grind, all that money that we're just saving for a future ends up being used for prescriptions we can't pronounce, for doctor visits. And so there's a point where we have to look at that income and that the money that we make as an investment in ourselves, and also as an investment in the future. And that isn't just hitting those financial targets, it's hitting those wellness targets as well. So that's what I want to leave off with.
Yeah. And to add on to that, I think doing this with others is so critical, whether you're finding a coach, a community, an accountability partner. If you're creating a new habit and it's uncomfortable, chances are you're not going to sustain it. So please find other people to be with you in this journey, and you will A, be more likely to follow through, but B, just have more fun with it and learn from them. Plus, we're all too close to ourselves. So it's critical to get perspective. And the only way to do that is, again, with others.
Well said. I'm going to leave it there. This has been a tremendously powerful conversation. I have loved the guest panelists today. And one of my favorite takeaways is that when it comes to personal development, it doesn't have to be doing everything all at once. It also doesn't have to be expensive. And we talked about a lot of different ideas today. And one is doing a personal inventory. The other is eliminating things from your life to make space so that you have time to invest in yourself. And I think if we're talking about cost, because we all get busy, time is limited, and we have bills to pay. But even if you just find one book and you can go to the library and borrow a book for free and just have some quiet time to yourself that you spend with that book. You can have a huge return on investment because that investment was free. And I love the idea that self-investment can be asymmetric. You know, $100 spent on a course could lead to a $10,000 raise. So keep yourself open to these ideas. And my challenge for you this week is just to identify one thing in your life that you want to improve, just one. And maybe you want to understand how to use AI in your job. Maybe you want to become a better public speaker. Maybe you just want to learn how to be a better cook. Whatever it is, pick one item, then do some research, find a course, a book, a coach, a community. And here's the critical part. Pick a date. Pick a date to start. Not someday, not when things slow down, but put an actual date on your calendar, because the difference between people who grow and people who stay stuck isn't talent or time or money. It's a willingness to pick a date and show up. And those small, consistent actions beat waiting for the perfect time every time. So give it a try. Let me know how you do. If you found this discussion today helpful and valuable, please share this episode with a friend. Leave us a review, subscribe so you never miss a conversation that can help you become a, I guess, more inspired self-investor. A few things before you leave. Let's connect on LinkedIn. Find me by searching for Advisor Andy. Inspired Money is created and produced by me and Bradley John Eaglefeather. Bradley's behind the scenes during the live stream and edited the segments. Chad Lawrence does our graphics, animations, and editing. Last but certainly not least, I want to give a big shout out and express gratitude to our amazing guests today. Go follow their work. Kelly is the last one standing, the sole survivor.
Didn't want to leave you on your own, Andy. I'm here. I'm in the studio audience. Woo!
The tribe has spoken. You have won the survivor game today. I will thank everybody. I mean, the key is to go follow our guests and panelists. Big thanks to Whitney. You can find her at the disruptionadvisors.com. Check out her podcast, Disrupt Yourself, where she dives deep into growth and transformation. She has several books related to today's discussion. Go read Disrupt Yourself and Smart Growth. Thank you, Kelly, for hanging around. And now we can have a one-on-one conversation for another hour. Just kidding. You can learn more about Kelly at jkellyhoey, that's HOEY.co. And grab her book, Build Your Dream Network. It's an essential guide for building the connections that drive success. Thank you to Claire. Head over to ladiesgetpaid.com and pick up her book, Ladies Get Paid, a powerful roadmap to leveling up your career and financial future. And a big thanks to Jason. You can find him at frugal.com. That's PHROOGAL.com. And check out his latest book, Happy Money, Happy Life, which blends money and mindfulness for holistic success. Kelly, anything that you want to plug or share?
I want to say this has been fun. And I think just to leave people with, if you're not your own best investment, I don't know what is.
Well said. Thank you, Inspired Moneymaker, for joining us today and inspiring us to invest in ourselves. We have some great shows coming up. The Power of Giving, How Philanthropy Impacts Financial Well-Being, and The Psychology of Money, Understanding the Emotions and Behaviors that Impact Financial Decisions. Inspired Money will be back next week, Wednesday. That's October 8th at 1 p.m. Hope to see you then. In this episode, the word uncomfortable was mentioned many times. So as I say every week, do something that scares you, because that's where the magic happens. Thanks, everyone.